conjunction with the exhibition you see around you called Playing Pictures, Graphic Notation in the 20th Century, curated by graduate assistant Skylar Thornton. This piece, I'll give you a very brief introduction, but this piece started as a long sheet of paper with a pattern on it, and folks who came to the exhibition were invited to interact with it in whatever way they saw appropriate. So there were a series of evocative shapes and words on it, and that was really it. So what you see here has grown up since mid-September into the thing you see before it. And with that, I'll invite John Peterson to talk a little bit more about the piece specifically and what you're about to hear. So, John?
Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
We want to start by thanking IVS and by thanking Daniel for reaching out to us and initiating this collaboration. I think it's something that's been really rich for us to participate in, and something that we don't often get to do, and really rewarding for us to think about. I think I'm going to turn it over to Rosemary and to Andrew, who will tell us a little bit about the process that we took to create the template and the process that we took to realize the score.
Hi, I'm Rosemary. Thank you all for being here. So for designing the template, during our class time, we had many discussions about the best way to do it in a way that would provide for freedom for everyone who came to draw and also for us as performers, yet at the same time still provide constraint, because we were all a little scared of the idea of giving everyone this blank massive piece of paper. Stuff we wouldn't use before. So we discussed the idea of words, because that seems like the most obvious form of constraint, but they can be limiting, and they can also have dual meanings, which can be problematic. So then we talked about shapes as well, which provided some sort of spatial limit. And both of those ideas worked well, so we used both of them. For that, we came here one day, we sat down, we made lists, we came up with our theme of season, we listed words, which we could all kind of agree on. For shapes, we were surprisingly passionate about the best shape to represent each season. So for simplicity, we decided on a pattern. The box seemed just very simple, easy. The two circles give us options to split into two groups, and then we liked the triangle that pointed into the next season. And now Andrew is going to tell us about how we worked to perform this.
Yeah, so the big question was, when we were practicing this piece and working on it, how much of the performance is directly evocative of what you see? So are we directly trying to perform what's on the page? How successful can we actually be trying to emulate like that line, something like that? But we did have a few parameters that gave organization. Time, as you might expect, is horizontal, while pitch is vertical. We also related different colors to different instruments. So instruments with a warmer sound, things like bassoon, will have darker colors. My instrument, trumpet, I'm yellow. So contour was taken heavily into consideration. So a lot of times, if you see something that is very clearly an individual line, there will probably be a soloist or a group of performers trying to emulate that line in performance. We also took into consideration things like shape and density of the lines, in addition to patterns and the colors within the patterns. So, we really did go step by step in each individual thing and took very seriously what people came in and just wrote on a whim. We did find that we needed to choose some sort of pitch center. So we have a one-note idea that provides cohesion for each section. So hopefully we'll provide
Like a drone?
not necessarily a drone, more like a key. Yep. But hopefully we'll be able to successfully perform this for you.
Yeah, if you have any questions, yeah.
What color was the violin?
Which one of us? Oh, sorry. What color were you? It kind of jumped in between colors.
Mhm.
We didn't really assign necessarily specific colors. Every time there's this color, it has to be like this person or this instrument. Typically things of brighter sound, like Andrew, for example, the trumpet played yellow stuff, so I played as well some yellow stuff because I have high range, as did Kate and Rosemary over there with the small E-flat clarinet and some of the red stuff. So.
And did you indicate the change between the movements each time?
What I indicated, so we each of some of us were different cues. So I, for example, cued the boxes, and Rosemary cued the circles, and Andrew cued the triangles. Now within some of them, we gave multiple cues. Like for example, like the depth here, there was a cue to start that, and then there was a cue to start this. And for the spring, for the summer, there's a gesture here that I did. I noticed I played 3 big C major chords. So the key there was to play that section, that box 3 times, and after it got played 3 times, Rosemary knew that we moved on to the next one. So there's a lot of communication thing between all the members.
On our instruments. How did you all individually kind of decide on how you wanted to approach extended techniques? Because you were doing a ton of extended techniques.
Right.
And I really thought that was interesting.
I think for me, I don't remember us talking. Do you guys remember talking a lot about this?
We didn't explicitly talk about any of them. I think for each of us individually, it's whenever the texture sort of fit. Like I had some multiphonics that I was doing when I had the really gritty, death in particular, the bottom half of death. Just sort of whenever the texture we see just kind of made us feel like we should go that route. We didn't really communicate that specifically.
But it tended to be, I think, the sharper kinds
Yeah.
of lines and things, right? Yeah.
So example, like stuff like Frost, and on the shot here that Kate and I were doing, we did a lot of co-language and using the bow, or using the wood of the bow.
Sounds very brittle.
Yeah, it sounds very brittle, so stuff like Frost, we think of it being like really brittle and really sharp, so we had some stuff there, and I played a little bit behind the bridge in certain areas, and depth and whatnot, so I think it's just on a more of a personal level, it's like extended techniques for each person.
How has it evolved as you've played it? In other words, I don't know how many times you've gone through it, how many times you did little pieces of it, but what do you find happened to yourselves as performers as you play through this?
Well, I think the challenge, I think everyone can agree, was to find a sense of cohesion. Because you have something so indeterminate like this, you have a blank piece of paper and then you have a bunch of stuff written by, for lack of a better word, random people. So I think the most important thing was to find some sort of sense of cohesion. So as it transformed, in the first couple of rehearsals, I think we did a bunch of several different things on some of the same sections. But as time kind of moved along, we were like, okay, we have to establish some sort of cohesion, some sort of sense of togetherness. So if anybody else has to say
I think
as well.
just because approaching it, there's nothing explicitly written, so
Right.
we naturally have 8, if you include John, we have 9 different opinions of what we feel in each section. So we kind of had to play around with each section and come to some decisions. Yeah.
And if you compare, how did you feel the first time we read each of those sections? How did you feel about what we were doing? Or can you describe what happened the first time we read each of the sections?
It was not very guided the first time we read it. It was kind of just, okay, here's some shapes. We're just going to play around on our instruments for a little while until someone tells us to stop and fix it. As we progressed and rehearsed, we got more confident about what we definitely did and didn't want to do in each section, and we were able to actually progress through large chunks of the piece rather than getting to one shape in one season and having to stop and say like, okay, well, what are we doing?
Right.
Very
Yeah.
confusing in the beginning, so I really like the fact that we found some cohesion.
Just wondering, I mean, so normally, you'd all be playing something, and you'd have the music, and you'd all do the music. You'd all know what it was. As you were all doing this in your own different ways, were you thinking, that's not a triangle, what are they thinking? That's not a triangle at all. That's not a red, that's more yellow. Or is it just sort of completely improvisatory, so you're not even thinking about what the other, I mean, you have to be thinking what the other people are playing. And presumably you have to create some kind of shared understanding. So I'm just wondering about the kind of shared understanding versus the complete, like, okay, what's red?
Well, like for instance, in this box here, we ended up having Ito doing first the C major chord, and then Rosemary ended up doing an outline of it. And so some boxes we have very specific places where we do improv off another person, and then some boxes we did not actually definitively decide that we were going to do improv off each other. Some are more specific than others, but in general, with this kind of ensemble, to make it work and be cohesive, we do have to listen to each other a lot more. And I think that's one of the problems we faced when we first did this, is that we were kind of got locked into our own little worlds. And it's very important to listen to what everyone else is doing to actually make it make sense.
Yeah, another example of that is here in the spring box, where there's these, normally what you would think is two whatever stick characters looks like sitting or something on between two trees. So our idea was there is it's more of a lighter box. If you guys saw, there was a lighter texture and less things going on. Whereas something like Frost, you had a lot more, or something like the Storm, you had a lot more. So it was a lighter texture and included two open fits and some actors playing those two stick characters, Tony and myself.
I think in general, that's where it really helped to have Dr. Peterson listening to us do each of these sections as we rehearsed, so he could kind of give us the big picture of, did this come across as sounding like what it looks like? It may have sounded like it to us, in our own little world, trying to listen to what we can, but sort of guide our ensemble sound.
And I want to add one more thing on the tail of that. I think that's why, again, having John again was helpful because we it was really nice to have someone's opinion, and he gave us his opinion without telling us this is what you guys need to do. So it was more of like student collaborative led, with John just kind of being like the unifying factor. So anytime we needed some unity, we kind of fell apart, or we're going too long, it was like, okay guys, let's bring it back a bit. So exactly.
Can I go back to what the second violinist or the other violinist was talking about when she said outlining? So there was some sort of structure that the clarinetist was outlining?
Yeah.
Would you like to explain how you created your melody?
So if you see here, we were talking about colors earlier. So for example, in this top summer box, I took the yellow. And initially, I wanted to kind of go exactly as the lines are, but I kind of moved away from that. It's a little bit hard to see. There's kind of like a bigger shape here, combined by two triangles. So I was thinking, okay, louder, like a bigger, louder thing happening, this sort of thing. So we knew that for this box, if you couldn't tell, the pitch center was C. So I played a big C major chord, and then I took my wanting up to follow the lines a lot more. So I played this big C major here, and I played C up to B natural, back down to B natural. So you see following these lines pretty drastically within an octave, restarting on G, and then ending on G. And like I said, this box was done 3 times. So then I would repeat it. I'd go back to C major chord, and I would do it a little bit differently each time. And we kind of Rosemary and I talked about it. Okay, this is exactly what I'm doing. C up to B, and I'll down to B, G, whatever.
So
and she
how is her reaction to what you're doing, her outlining what you're doing?
I played a figure that was similar but not the same, and a few seconds or so off in time.
Yeah.
And in a much more introverted way because he was the bigger thing in that section.
And I think it was more of, correct me if I'm wrong, it was
Stressing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stressing it?
Instead of like following me exactly, it was so going back C, B, B, G, G, so she did things, and she knew by the time I got to a certain spot, she had to be on that pitch. C, by the time I reached the first B, she was at a B. By the time I went down to the other B, she was at a B, but she was doing whatever she wanted. Stuff that kind of like outlined that.
So I'm interested in the act of performing this kind of music and what that did for you as a performer that's different from having a Beethoven score laid out before us and we all watch that. So that you get into this performance situation. I mean, as a performer, I think it's really stressful to have everybody watch the score while you're performing, right? Like that is, it feels like a jury, right? But did you have some other sense in this situation with the although we all looked at it and actually I felt like I was able to follow it, we didn't have any real expectations of what it would be.
At least for me personally, it was a lot of, it's kind of the deal where the power of suggestion, like you hear us playing something and you see like Summer on the page, it's like, oh, I hear that in whatever they're doing. And so I think it forced us to really listen to each other to make sure not only are we giving that to the audience, but like we're also looking at the word Summer on our paper and listening to what we're all playing as a group and seeing, oh, does that sound like that? Or if it doesn't, what can I change on the fly right now to make it more like that? It's a lot freer of an experience because if you mess up, you can either change it or B, no one's really gonna know anyway.
Yeah.
And I think, in general, like even in traditionally notated music we play, there's a lot that's not written on the page that we play, with phrasing and, different dynamic contrasts and stuff. Especially Beethoven.
Oh man. Yeah.
So this is just sort of taking it a step further, so it's not necessarily like trying to speak a completely different language.
Yeah, it was kind of a breath of fresh air, as much as, some of us, especially me, like the rigid structure of like a Beethoven symphony or anything else we play in any of our respective ensembles. It was kind of neat to start from the very beginning with literally just an idea on words. Not even the specific words, an idea, and kind of see it transform through the entire journey of where it is, laying out for you now. It was, like I said, it was very free, really neat to do, make those decisions.
You kind of start down this path and be interested in others as well. What were the joys? What did you get out of it as a performer? What was maybe different that you appreciated in doing something like this?
At least for me personally, it was fun to play a contradiction part that wasn't like 4 notes. It let me do a lot of things with the instrument that you never really get to do in traditionally notated works, especially for some of us who are on more auxiliary instruments. Thinking mainly me and Rosemary.
For me anyway, like in an academic setting, normally you don't get much of an opportunity to actually improvise, and so that's the fun part for me anyway, is that, we got to improvise and get a slightly different effect every time, but they're all interested in this too.
Did you guys end up notating anything officially?
Not really.
Or just personal reminders.
Yeah, like for, we all had a copy of the score. We're sharing scores right now, but what we did throughout each rehearsal is John would jot some, actually pretty specific rehearsal notes about what we were doing. And then we would go back to our parts and to our scores and some of the scores and notate, we should jot down some things. So for
Mostly
example,
Mostly remind us of what the key areas are
Yeah.
in each section.
or what the general
Aesthetic.
Yeah, general aesthetic was. So for the march there, Kevin and I were doing 2 separate marches. Specific to Beethoven one, and he did something different, right? Chopin. Yeah, he did Chopin one. So we added an element of strict notation to an otherwise pretty indeterminate thing.
Well, we want to thank IVS again for collaborating with us. We found it really rewarding, and we look forward to future collaborations.
Great, thank you.